what this work does is it shifts probabilities in your favor. I mean, that's the only reason we incarnate, because we don't know what we're in store for.
Yeah.
And so you can just take your pendulum. I'll use my skull pendulum.
Oh, cool. I love that one. It's
Yes.
just so goth. And it's
Yeah, exactly. It's too bad like Keith Richards or Johnny Depp or something don't discover this.
yeah, exactly.
This is the age of the multi-dimensional self.
Hi there, it's Kelly here from Divine Alchemy Healing, and today we're absolutely delighted to welcome back Erich Hunter, who's going to be telling us all about his wonderful new huge book, Pendulum Alchemy. And hi Erich, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Kelly?
I'm very good, thank you, and super excited for this interview.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. What can you tell us what led you to write this book then? Because you've got a few books out now, haven't you? And this one seems to encapsulate so much. What was it
Yeah,
that
that's a
first?
great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I first started off, I was learning a lot, I was new to the field. I'd been doing it for a while, but the books were kind of my process of discovery. But then at a certain point, I realized that like when I was writing those commands guides books, I had two commands guides books that came out before this one. I really started to grow a lot in knowledge and wisdom in this area and expertise, like just having experience with so many people doing it, that like the commands guides book were very different than my previous books, like the pendulum healing books.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the two commands guides books, and then, but people were still referencing stuff from like 5 or 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, this doesn't really reflect my current thinking on these topics. So I was like, I have to get this into the form of a book so I can share it with people so they could see my vision and learn these techniques that have been hard fought over the years.
Yeah.
Through experience and like working with all these different people and interacting with people every day like around the world. So that's where this book came from. It's like it's the synthesis of my latest ideas. And yeah, I'm actually going to take the old books down, not the commands guides, but the older pendulum healing books. I'm actually going to take them down because this has moved beyond that. Like when I first started, it was like there were dowsers, and then in Europe there were pendulum healers. But I have a much broader vision for this. Like, yeah, dowsing is great, and I do it all the time. It's cool. But this is something different than dowsing. It's not just asking questions, it's shifting and changing reality. And yes, healing is a part of it, but it's so much broader than just healing. It's like manifesting, having, better relationships, all kinds of things that aren't necessarily healing. So at a certain point, I realized the healing title was too limiting, and that's just one thing you can do.
Sure.
There's broader, but the main themes of the book are energy healing and manifestation, because those cover such big areas. But there is a strong component too of like spiritual awakening, which is the subtext of it, and spiritual growth and emotional healing as well. But that's not like it's not explicit, but it's definitely a subtext of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I came out. I just needed to update people on, hey, what's going on, Erich Hunter 2.0.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because often we've been on a really long journey and you've accumulated all this wisdom. And I feel like, also even with the earth frequencies coming in now, we're much more able to do bigger and better things with our intention and using pendulums. And so the fact that you've gone, yeah, some of that is now out of date. So here's where I am now. Here's all the new stuff is a really brilliant idea, isn't it? Because when you've put something in a book, people get hooked on it and they'll keep going back and back. But now you've got this new book with all the most up-to-date work that you've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm constantly trying to learn. Like I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
I have a freaking PhD in research biology that I got before even doing any of this stuff. And then I learned the art of teaching through being an educational consultant. So I'm constantly curious about the world and learning. So at the time, those older books were the best that I could do. They were the most cutting edge ideas I had. But then experience said, wow, there's a different way you can do this. Like it's like those books are good. There's still a lot of value in them. If you have them, don't throw them out. But I realized certain ideas were kind of new and then I hadn't fully worked them out yet. And then I found better ways to do things, or people shared with me better ways that we were willing to develop together. Like I've worked on courses with a lot of people who were my students previously. They became like colleagues. So yeah, I love learning and I'm trying to bring the best information to people so that they can maximally have maximal impact to improve their life and the lives of those they care for in ways for the highest good of all concerned.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is there any what was your favorite thing in the book, or is there a few favorites that you've got, or is there
Yeah,
anything that's sort of
I mean, some of the chapters got really long because I had fun doing them, and then some are like really important to me, but I don't know how important other people would think they are. So like I had this whole section on pendulum alchemy in the kitchen. It's like really long. I just had fun making it. And it was kind of like a gift for my girlfriend who's really into that
yeah,
stuff. So, because when I met her, she didn't know anything about pendulums, and I never forced her to do it, but she just said, "Wow, that's so cool! You're doing." She just started doing it, and now she does it all the time. So that was like one chapter that was fun, and then yeah, but the chapter, I mean, I also really like I have this chapter. We're going to talk about it later. I think I had this rainbow love bombing thing. That was a fun chapter to write for me. It's all about how to express your shadow in a healthy way, so
wow.
that like you can not spiritually bypass, but still be true to yourself while making the world a better place.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think for me I'm really intellectual, so I really like the color healing chapter.
right.
I felt like that was where I could really grind my teeth, or I don't know what the right word is. I could really dig in as like with the scientific brain, combining it with the woo-woo brain,
Yeah,
and sort of trying to find a syncretism or like a common ground. Yeah, and I talked about it before. It's like spiritual materialism. So it's like
I
I'm
love that.
combining color, which is like electromagnetic energy, with chakras, which is something completely woo-woo, and trying to see like, well, does it make sense, And then what parts of the body would it affect? And then logically, then what colors would affect those parts of the body? Because I really like it when you can see a pattern or system. And I guess it's like the scientist in me, because I used to look
Yeah,
for patterns in nature. When I was a biologist, I studied evolutionary biology of insects. And so I would look at fossils and living species, and then I would look at their anatomy, their DNA and stuff. And then I would figure out like patterns in nature and try to say, like, well, what was the pattern that occurred over the course of, millions of years that resulted in these different varieties? And so I'm good at finding patterns. And so that with the color chapter, I could see all these patterns. It's like, okay, so the chakra colors aren't arbitrary. There's a reason, like there's actually a reason why they are the way they are, and
right.
it correlates with other things like that make a lot of sense. And so like you can come out with almost like a spiritual system. So it's almost like so for example, light is life because colors are the visible part of the color spectrum. You can only see colors during the light during the daytime, and humans and other animals and plants, most of them evolved, well, nearly all of them evolved because, well, all of them actually, because of sunlight. Like, the first blue-green algae on the earth was from the sun. So light is life. Now, some species have adapted to live in the dark, but ultimately the sun is the source of life. So the chakras are like part of the light body. And then it would make sense that the colors would be the spectrum of the rainbow because those are the visible wavelengths of lights. Anyway, so you can get kind of geeky with it, but that was like personally like what I love
Yeah,
doing is finding the patterns, because then you can make extensions that other people haven't made, and then you can find better ways to do things. You're like, wait a minute, if this is true and this is true, then it must also mean that that is true, but no one has ever said that before or thought that way. And then you can make an extension and then try something out, and then wow, it worked. It's like cool. So yeah, I did a lot of that in this book. And I use that color system. It's sort of an underlying framework of all of my methods. But anyway, I
Right,
don't want
that's
to go too
really,
far down that rabbit
that's
hole.
great. That's really interesting.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of people, they just, not to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like it really frustrates me. A lot of people are just totally woo-woo on this. They're just like, well, my angel told me that there's diamond, pink diamond color, and that's cool. And if it works, that's great. I'm all for it. But I'm more of an old school wizard or magician, like, because they always studied nature and they found the pattern in nature, and then they try to figure out, well, how could we apply this to create changes to reality? That was like medieval and Renaissance magic. But they were woo woo too. They had like daemons and angels and all kinds of things too. So it wasn't, but like that was, and then that evolved into science. But there was still like this spiritual, religious, magical part that sort of stayed around. Anyway, so
I feel like the combination of science and spiritual is a very, very powerful way to work, actually. So,
yeah, totally.
it really makes sense to me. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying about that sort of, well, again, it's when people are very ungrounded, often some of the messages they might get or feel, yes, it might work for them temporary, but I mean, we said before we started recording, let's do some work on grounding and protection, because there is this element of people coming into this sort of work and any spiritual sort of awakening, and I'm sure it's not, it's just pure excitement about this whole new sort of reality that they're discovering.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, and it is exciting, but we are on a 3D planet. We need to be grounded in some sort of reality, because there's that fine line between, I think they called it the spiritual madness, and
All
we've all
been there.
met one, haven't we, or two along the way, that you sort of think, okay, yep, they're not living in the reality that we're in.
Yeah,
Um,
no, totally.
yeah.
Okay, I'll wait though. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it's just, yeah, I was just trying to think of how to word it, because there needs to be a recognition that we're here on Earth, as well as being able to create our own reality to a certain extent. I'd love you to tell me that story about the water.
Oh yeah, well, I had another direction I wanted to go with it based on
Okay,
what you just said, if that's okay.
yeah, go on then. Let's go there.
Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. It's like, because when you start discovering that, hey, there's so much more to reality than I ever imagined, and I actually have some agency potentially in the world. I can cause changes and I can help and do things. Like, it's so awesome. Like, you can really go on a high with that, and I've done that, and it's good. And I'm not saying like when I say that I'm like a spiritual materialist, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket. I'm not trying to
No.
wreck the party. Like, because I believe in some really woo-woo stuff like archangels and things like that. But then the question is, like, at a certain point, it is possible, I think, to take it too far, and then that can actually lead to some problems. So I think it's like you've got to have an open mind, like in the first place, even be interested in this kind of stuff. But then it does help to kind of ground it in some reality, while at the same time having a miracle mindset, which sounds like a total paradox. It's like, well, how could I do both? But that's like embracing the duality there, because usually it's either or, like either it's all miracles or it's all materialism. Like, no, it can't be real. It's all your imagination. It's just a placebo effect. Or, oh, it's my angels. Oh, it's this. But what if it's both? We got to embrace both those dynamics, because they're both real. Like, the angels could be there and you might be having the placebo effect.
Yeah,
Your angels might be there and you might just be making this up.
yeah,
So it's a very delicate thing that requires a lot of subtlety, nuance, and sometimes just experience to that
yeah.
and just throw you onto the rocks or maybe lift you to the heavens.
Yeah.
It kind of depends how it goes, but the thing is, like, I really don't want people to think that I'm just saying, oh, don't believe in I totally believe in magic. I love miracles. It's awesome when they happen. And I think it's like a great way to live because it gives you so much potential, so much hope. Because like the skeptical materialist point of life is so depressing
Yeah.
at times because there's no magic, there's no hope. It's just like, well, it didn't work, or it does work, or this is the only way to do it, or there's, oh, stop, like there's no growth possible. So I think like if you can embrace the duality of a being willing to try to ground the stuff a little bit in reality, test things out, actually do some real world things, and then I'll circle back to your example that you wanted me to talk about.
Yeah.
While at the same time having this kind of miracle mindset or magic mindset that hey, magic is possible. There's all kinds of amazing things, miracles can happen. Like embracing both of those feels so important to me because it really can give you hope, especially in difficult times. And sometimes it really works. So
Yeah.
it's like,
And
you've got nothing to lose by doing it. Like even if it is just placebo effect, if you get an effect, that's cool. If you were to completely be reductionist, but I think it's more than that, honestly. But yeah, so like going back to the example you wanted me to talk about earlier, like there are people who have some ideas that like, wow, it sounds cool. Like, like, oh, you could take your pendulum and turn water into food and just live off the water for the rest of your life. Okay, I mean, like, I want to believe that. It sounds like really amazing, but to me, honestly, that seems really ungrounded. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you try that for a couple of months and see how you feel?
when you're a
If you're
little
still
weak.
alive, and not in the hospital after doing that for half a year, or if, I mean, you probably wouldn't even live that long if you did it for that long. But, like, so I do think, yes, try things out, but ground it in some reality. Actually observe what's the result? What happens when I do this? Do I feel better or worse? Does it actually work at some level? And then if you try it a bunch of times or you try it once and it's a disaster, just don't do it anymore. So that's like maybe one way to embrace the reality. Try different things out, explore, and then just see like, did I get a result or not? Like that's why in this book, like the very first chapters are just pick, like literally almost in the first chapter it says, pick up your pendulum and say a few of these pendulum commands.
Yeah.
So it's like, I raise my consciousness to the highest level possible. I send love to all people in my family or all people known and unknown who are in my sphere. Send blue-green energy to my body to help me feel healthy and whole and happy. So I want people to get experience right away and just
Yeah.
try some of this stuff
I
and
really
just
love that.
like, do I get a result or not? So like if you try this for a few days or a few weeks and you're not seeing any result, then maybe it's just not for you. But I really think it's important that this whole thing of grounding the magic in some kind of like reality. So like with that water thing, all right, if you think it can work, try it out and then just see like how does your body react to it?
Yeah.
Is it making you, is it filling your needs or is this not going to work?
Yeah.
So it can be very simple sometimes like that. And
Yeah.
you don't like, I could be skeptical about it and
It works.
if you're not skeptical about it, then I encourage you to just try it out. That's the approach I have. Like,
Yeah.
so people will say some really like far out stuff to me sometimes, and I'm like, well, that's cool. I mean, give it a try.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you don't hurt anybody or hurt yourself in the process, maybe it will work. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think it can work, but maybe I have a limited point of view. So, but
That's,
then there are other things. Anyway, I'm kind of going on, but I think I made my point pretty good.
yeah, and feedback's important, isn't it? Like if
Very, very
it's
important.
working, then it's time to try something else, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, because I think that's how magic. I don't like to use the term magic because it turns off so many people, but that's what pendulum alchemy is essentially. It's like for energy healing and manifestation, which scientists would call magic, but you've got to take real life actions and also test things out. So it's like, okay, so I've got my pendulum here. If someone's pregnant, is it a boy or no? Is the person pregnant or not?
That's the classic one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're pregnant. Now get a pregnancy test and check it out. Or is it a boy or a girl? Okay, now go to the doctor and get the test to find out if it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
So like it's cool. I mean, I think it's great to use the pendulum for things, but you got to test it with reality. Same thing with like, when you're trying to manifest or heal. So it's like, let's say you want to get a new job. So you're like, okay, or you want to get money. So you're like, all right, I want to make money. I want to win the lottery. And then you just sit there in your room and you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You got to take action. It's like, okay, so you did the pendulum. Now
Yeah.
go look for a job. Go buy a lottery ticket.
Yes.
Do something to ground this in reality, because what this work does is it shifts probabilities in your favor.
Yeah.
So normally in life, everything is just going along randomly. It's like whoever is the loudest voice in the room pushes things in a certain direction, or sometimes it's just accidents or fate or whatever, just the winds of fate just blowing things around. But then when you take a pendulum and you start doing this work, like saying commands or sending energy to someone's body, all of a sudden there's a coherent signal that's being sent. And if the resistance is very low, all of a sudden things can just completely change.
Yeah.
And that's like what a miracle healing is, when you think something's impossible, but it just means that you can't see it, but there's just no resistance. And then when you just put a little bit of consciousness in that direction, all of a sudden things shift. And that's what pendulum alchemy is all about. You're just doing these little subtle things to try to gently stimulate things to go in a certain direction, either push or pull or stop or energize. These little simple things, they're just little signals, and it's very subtle.
Yeah.
I like to think of it like if you put a boat on still, like a little paper boat on still water, you
Yeah.
could just blow it and then it would just kind of start going in a certain direction. You could blow it again. That's kind of like what pendulum alchemy does. Like a lot of people want it to be like, oh, my pendulum is shooting out laser beams, and it's like a hammer that's just freaking beating
Yeah.
the hell out of something.
Forcing a gap in reality for me to get.
Right. And a lot of people who get involved with magic and related things, that's what they want. They want control of their lives. They want to just force everything to go in a certain direction. But pendulum alchemy is very powerful, but it's very subtle at the same time. It's a different. So you do your pendulum, that starts pushing it one direction. Then you take an action step that grounds that, and that keeps pushing it. And then in that process, resistance is being reduced. And then at a certain point, you can have changes occur that wouldn't otherwise happen. So, like, there have been people who've done amazing things where they've changed realities that were not meant to be changed easily, just by doing this simple process. And sometimes it takes longer and sometimes it's very quick.
Yeah.
So
I always feel like it's sort of opening your mind to new possibilities as well, isn't it? When you, especially, if you're looking through your book and you see something that think, oh, that really appeals to me, it resonates with me. But before maybe you were a bit more closed down to the possibility that you could use a pendulum and the alchemy in that way. Whereas, you see something and you go, oh, right, okay, let's go there. And it straight away opens up your mind on another level to the possibility that this could happen to you, and why not,
yeah.
I always go back to a miracle that for me was so profound, because when I was waiting for my kidney transplant, I had a donor, and then they said my antibodies were too high for that donor, so they could put us in a pool scheme. And but in my heart, I just knew that I wanted my donor's kidney, and it felt like it should be, and I kept holding that. And we had a match, and then it got cancelled. The transplant got cancelled twice, one because I had a urine infection, and then they got COVID, and then they retested my antibodies, and they'd completely aligned with my actual donor, who's also called Erich. So I had Erich's kidney, and I felt like, because I sort of stayed open to the fact that I could have Erich's kidney, because he's so healthy. He looks up, he really works out, and he was even taking supplements to support his kidneys, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
So and it happened. And the nurse actually said to me when she rang, she said, it's a miracle. And I was like, yes, it is. It is a miracle. And then in my head, I went, miracles come to me all the time.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. That's great. That's a great story. Yeah, no, it's totally in alignment. Like, so with this pendulum alchemy, it's like a technology that just magnifies what you did without the pendulum. So, and like sometimes it can work, just purely through like law of attraction, manifestation. And I believe in all that stuff and I do it and I think it's cool.
Yeah,
And I definitely, it's a great outcome you got there. And then I also really believe in trusting your intuition and your knowing and then yeah, and then miracles happening. Yeah, like with the pendulum thing, one thing I would say about that is that that one advantage of the of putting in the pendulum alchemy part is that you get your desires out of your energy field.
yeah,
So, like with law of attraction, you have to be vibrationally aligned a lot of times. So it sounds like you were in that case. Like you wanted to work, you wanted that donor's kidney, and you had a good energetic resonance, you had an intuitive knowing. So you had a lot of alignment going on there.
yeah,
And I'm glad that you did. But like in some cases, you might have something that you want and you might not be aligned. Like you're
cool.
like, well, I really need a new car,
Yeah,
but there's no way I can get one. Like I don't have the money, like all this kind of like there's too many problems, like wow, I don't know how that's gonna work. So if you just try to use the law of attraction, there's going to be like a disharmony. Like you're going to be holding that frequency while at the same time not believing it won't
yes,
work.
yeah,
So one thing about the pendulum alchemy is that you get that desire out of your energy field by saying the command out loud, and then the pendulum energizes it. So it allows the law of attraction to work independently of your disbelief, and it can make things more likely to happen in that way. So if you really weren't believing that you could get that guy's kidney, you could do some pendulum alchemy and then it would get it out of your field of disbelief. So that's one cool thing about the pendulum alchemy. And it's like how you can incorporate it with the law of attraction, because you can still get everything in alignment the way they teach, but
yeah,
then you can add an added layer of also getting the form out of your energy field.
yeah. That's amazing and really interesting as well because sometimes if you're trying to manifest something, it can almost feel like you're trying to force it a bit, which to me says, oh, I'm not in the right place for this. If I,
Right,
like I'm undoing it as quick as I'm trying to do it.
right, right.
Whereas with the
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
yeah,
Yeah, so like there's a really good example I have with that. It's like sending love to your enemies and everybody you hate, and anyone who's bothering you. So like, because what happens is like you're like, okay, so there's someone who I hate or they're bothering me.
mm,
Like you can't go from like hating them to just
something,
being accepting them
yeah,
or even loving them, right? Because that's just be impossible, right? It would be healthy, it would be spiritually bypassing, it would be bad for you actually to do
yeah,
that. But what you can do with the pendulum is you can hate them with a passion and fury, and then you can still send them love. And then what it does is it kind of works outside of your field, and then it raises the vibe of the whole situation so that you can get closer to being in a place of acceptance. Because like that feeling of hatred is actually there to raise your consciousness. So like David Hawkins on his scale, hatred is above apathy.
right,
Like, there
yeah,
are different, so some of these so-called negative emotions are actually ways to raise your vibe. So
yeah,
you have to be where you're at, but then at the same time, if you can actually take the step of saying, okay, even though I can't stand this person, I'm going to send them love. Even if you don't believe it, it still can have an impact on you and the person. And then it can have a net result of raising the vibe of the whole situation so that you can get closer to a place of healing with them. And so I think somehow that relates to that example you were
yeah,
giving before. But yeah, it's like that's another thing about the pendulum alchemy. You don't have to believe it at all. Like you can not believe it, and it
yeah.
can still have an influence.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Funny enough, last night, my mother I was on the phone to her and she said, I've lost one of my hearing aids. And that's
Oh,
a
no.
problem for her. And she said, do you know where it is? And
Oh,
I said, and then I said, hang on. So I went and got a pendulum and I sort of tuned in my Metatron and said, it's not something I'd know. Like, I'm a bit sort of like when I'm working with big angelic guides, I don't really ever want to do silly stuff with them. But I said, could you just help me narrow down where this hearing aid might be? So I just asked, is it in this room? Is it in that room? And we narrowed it down to the kitchen. And then I double checked and I sort of just went and did another room and said, or is it outside? And it was both no's. And then we sort of eventually, I looked at the floor, the cupboards, had it gone behind the radiator? And then I said, is it in the bin? And it was a yes. And anyway, I came off the phone to them, and Dad was sort of grumbling in the background, going, "Oh, if it's in the bin, I'm going to have to go take it outside and empty it all out because it's full." 20 minutes later, my mum texted me, and she just put, "It was in the bin."
oh wow.
Like, but part of me wasn't. Because I don't tend to do that sort of thing with pendulums. I was a bit like, I don't know whether this is right or not.
Yeah. Did you combine the Pendulum Alchemy Metatron with the dowsing?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
asked
cool.
Metatron to be with me, and then I
Nice.
said, "Could you tell me what room it's in?" And I was holding my pendulum. I was just getting yeses and nos, basically.
Right, right.
And I have done something similar when I temporarily mislaid my cat a few years back. I just took a pendulum outside with me and said, "Tell me when I'm getting warmer," to where my cat was, and it led me to a garage, and he'd been shut in there
Oh
basically,
wow. Okay.
which was just quite a way down the road. So it wasn't, like I was just literally following when it was saying I was getting warmer. But yeah, it was phenomenal. And I think my parents don't really, they're both in their 80s. They're not really into my
Yeah.
sort of lifestyle.
My parents aren't into it either. They think I'm totally gone off the rails. Yeah, so I had two thoughts there about what you said about the story. I mean, like one of them was that like it's cool you combine the pendulum alchemy with the dowsing. Like
Yeah,
some people think I hate dowsing, but I don't. I like it. What I don't like is
yeah,
like when some people really disempower themselves by saying like, "Well, my pendulum told me
yes,
that." I'm like, "Well, it was actually you who now you could have gotten a message like you did." So
yeah,
like like I do believe that you can sense like an archangel sending you a signal and then you're translating it into movement. So
yeah,
I think it's cool to combine pendulum alchemy with dowsing, and I actually do a lot of pendulum dowsing, and I think it's cool that you did that, and I'm glad the result was good. The other thing though, like I would bring in, like you said, you weren't sure if it was okay or not. That's why I have in the book and in my
yeah,
teachings is one of the fundamental things, highest good of all concerned. That
yes,
way you can ask for anything you want, like even if it's outrageous or everyone would think it's wrong,
yeah,
right? 'Cause who's to say what's right or wrong? Just like, is it in the highest good of all concerned? So at least you're setting that intention out there.
yeah,
Because, there's so many things that like you might want, but someone else might think, wow, that's a sin or that's terrible.
yeah.
How dare you ask for that?
Yeah, like
You
if you
know, but
said, "I want loads and loads of money," for a lot of people, that would feel like a very selfish.
I know they'd be like, "Oh, you're so greedy. That's
Yeah,
terrible."
yeah,
So like there are all kinds of things that you could think of that people would judge you on, or you might even have doubt about doing. Like you're like,
yeah,
"Well, I don't know if this is okay to do or not. Like, is it appropriate to call an archangel to find
yeah.
anything for me?"
Just to
Like,
ask
I
for a
don't know.
hearing.
Is that like a sin? Will I offend the archangels by doing this? And so that's why I always say, like, just do the highest good of all concerned because like for everything when you're a beginner especially because that way it really frees you to just start asking for what you want, and then that's like part of this whole spiritual evolution part of this book,
Yeah,
because a lot of us have been repressed in this lifetime and other lifetimes where we can't ask for what we want
yeah,
because And then there's all kinds of moral judgment systems. Like so many manifestation and healing systems have all these moral judgments. I mean, I'm like, just go crazy. Like,
Yeah.
just ask for outrageous stuff that everyone would think is wrong, but in your heart you really want. Like,
Yeah,
and then just try it out, but just say for the highest good of all concerned. And that way, if it works, you know it was in your highest good. And if it doesn't, it's freeing. Like you don't have to beat yourself up. You can just say, well, that wasn't really in my highest good, that thing. And yeah, because that's like an important part of spiritual thing too, is this dance of surrender and control. Because so many people get into pendulums, like either through for dowsing or for pendulum alchemy or whatever, to try to control everything. But then at a certain point, you have to, at certain times, you're just going to have to surrender because things aren't going to change or they're not going to go the way you want. You can still affect peripheral things possibly and make the overall situation better. But yeah, so I think that's an important thing. So if, with the highest good of all concerned, it can kind of give you some peace of mind because you'll be like, all right, well, like let's say like, well, I really want to send that person healing, but they didn't give me permission to send them healing. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Well, just do only if in the highest good of all concerned, if you feel strongly and you can't ask for permission. That way, if it's not in their highest good, the healing won't land.
it's such a good
Um,
point.
yeah, and but also like it allows you to ask for things that are crazy, like like yeah, I want to date 100 women, or I want millions of dollars, or whatever, like your crazy ideas. But then just
Yeah.
say highest good of all
Yeah.
concerned, and then that way, now I personally wouldn't ask for those things, but I'm just saying like examples of things that people would think, oh, that's totally wrong. But
Yeah.
but what could be wrong for most people might be really right for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like who's to say, right? I
Might be
mean,
part of
so
your journey to getting to a better place.
right. Sometimes you have to express the shadow in order to evolve or heal,
Yeah.
in a healthy way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't suggest unhealthy shadow expression where you harm people in any way. But
No.
as long as it's not harming anybody, just go for it. That's what I say.
Yeah. I mean, I have a contract set with all my guides that I work with, and in particular the archangels, that everything I do is, it's only going to happen if it's for the highest will and good. But it's a really good point to remind people. And I like that fact of, yeah, if you say it's for the highest good, you can ask for some crazy stuff and see what happens, like there's no
Right.
harm with it, is there?
And if you get it, everyone else benefits at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about it. Like you could ask for things that you think, wow, society would think I'm wrong. But then if it works out, you're actually benefiting everyone. So what I've seen with this for myself and for other people is like the more you do this highest good of all concerned things start like generally improving overall for everyone in your sphere. It's kind of cool how it works out. Like, like you'll like when you meet somebody like first, like they may be at a certain place, but then when they hang around you for a while, all of a sudden their life's improving too in a lot of ways, which is interesting. And I've seen it happen. And then also you can have all kinds of like side effects that you don't even expect are going to happen, where like you do one thing and then it triggers a whole bunch of other things that are positive or beneficial that help a lot of different people out, and it's kind of surprising how that can work and how it can play out. So that's another cool aspect of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you might not even know about all the benefits that you doing something actually
Right.
shares out into everyone else. But like it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Because I feel like that's true of so many things, especially when you're doing work that's like benefiting, like say everyone upon the earth or something like that. You don't know how it's going to work, but you're putting that out there and working with the pendulum is raising the frequency, and it could just change one person or do
Oh
something
yeah.
that makes their day go so much nicer, or but whether you'll ever know about it is another thing. But I do this thing on
Oh yeah.
when I'm sitting on the train going to London. I often just tune in with my guides and ask that everyone receives some light, And I sort of visualize it as guides coming along and just tapping them on the crown chakra with a magic wand,
Oh
like,
wow, that's
and giving them
cool.
this light. And it's funny because people start smiling at me and things, or someone will suddenly start up a conversation instead of looking at their phone. And I always feel like that's the little sign, I
Oh
haven't.
yeah. Yeah, same thing happens to me when I go out in public too, because I often do it right before I go out, and then people just start talking to me, or they'll start smiling, or they'll just like. But
Love.
yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah, when you're doing this kind of work with healing, especially, like you can't expect people to like necessarily tell you that they're getting a result. Like, yeah, because like once, I mean, they often do, but like sometimes they won't. Like once when I first started, I did all this work for this person. And then they were like, I was like, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, nothing happened. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they proceeded to tell me that their entire life had changed since the last session. And I was like, what do you mean nothing happened? Like, this is completely different than the place you were at like a month ago. Like, what are you talking about? So, but people don't often register that. So I
Yeah,
agree with you. It's good just to do this and like you can just send it out and you won't necessarily know, but sometimes you will.
yeah,
Especially if you see family members or friends acting differently or starting to change. I've had so many people tell me like that someone, like a family member who was kind of like nasty towards them, all of a sudden got friendly, or a coworker. Yeah, or like the entire dynamic of relationships shifts. So yeah, that's definitely cool.
it's so funny about that thing where yeah, they say that to you, like, oh, nothing happened, and then go and tell you. But I feel like it's almost like in my NLP training, it said when people do that, it's because that's not in their energy anymore, so
Right, it's
they find
totally
it
the
hard to go back.
yeah,
But if you
exactly.
what they said in the last session or something, and you
Right.
said this, and this, and they go, oh yeah, but they don't feel it at all anymore. So it's, because they're not in that frequency or energy anymore, or, you could call it emotional state. Everything has changed, and now that's where they're at now. So that's just normal for them. So,
Right.
yeah,
That's why in the new book, in a lot of the protocols, I have like you take a survey before and after
yeah, yeah,
so that people can track the progress. Because like if someone was at like, oh, I feel horrible the first session, then after like a couple sessions they come back, well, I'm not fully healed yet, but I'm like 80% or 90. You're like, well, that's major progress, you know?
yeah.
It's important to track that sort of thing when you're doing this like professionally, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk because we talked earlier before we came online about maybe talking about grounding and protection and doing some commands as we go. Tell me about your grounding. Should we start with grounding and then go on to protection?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're
Yeah,
kind of related to each other.
yeah. They go
Um,
hand in
so
hand.
I mean, yeah, the grounding part, like I guess there are different ways to view grounding. There's like literal grounding, like people do earthing and things like that. And then there's also grounding, like grounding it in reality, like, and we kind of touched on that earlier about taking action steps and things. So, like, if you really are concerned with the literal grounding, like connecting with the earth, I mean, other than just going out and doing those practices like hugging trees and stepping on the soil barefoot,
Yeah,
etc., one thing you can do with the pendulum is you can communicate with nature spirits. And like I have a really cool chapter on that in
yeah,
the new book. Like it's a pretty long chapter. I've had a lot of experience with nature spirits, and so you can use your pendulum to commune with nature spirits,
yeah,
connect with them, and that will help ground you because it will connect you to the frequencies of nature that are in your environment. And that's really what grounding is about. It's connecting to the earth energies, and the nature spirits are an extension of the earth energies
yeah,
in a given area. So that's like one way. Like so in addition to like literally, grounding, like putting your feet on the earth or hugging a tree or
yeah.
using one of
That's
those mats. Like
that's the
you could
3D
also
reality of it, isn't it? And then you can do other grounding, as you say, with a pendulum.
right, because you got to ground on the energetic level too. Like, and so those nature spirits are the expression of the earth in a form that's closer to us, and they're around us whether we know it or not. So like if you just do the literal grounding, like those earth people talk about, and you don't incorporate the nature spirits, you're missing a major element of the whole thing. So I think it's important if you really are concerned with grounding, you want to also spend time in nature. It could be in your garden,
Yeah.
taking a walk in the woods, but then also finding nature spirits and communicating with them can be beneficial. Like so simple command, like you don't like I have very
Yeah.
detailed instructions in here that go into
Yeah.
different aspects, but you could just do a simple thing like, like highest good of all concerned, I will connect with the beneficial nature spirits and they'll help me to ground myself and to become more grounded and connected to the earth energies. My highest good, the highest good of all concerned. Or you could say send love to all the local nature spirits that are in my yard, my home, my area, my garden. I ask to connect with them in ways that are for my highest good and the highest good of all concerned. Just simple things or anything like you want. The simple formula for a pendulum command is what you want plus in the highest good of all concerned. So
Yeah.
you could just say like highest good of all concerned, I will be more grounded. Or I'll be more grounded if in the highest good of all concerned.
Yeah.
I'll be more connected. My root chakra will be connected to the earth if in the highest good of all concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
really,
like just simple things like that you can do that can help to ground you more.
yeah.
The other thing is the crown chakra is kind of the opposite portal, and some people it's very, very open. And so you can also say, if in my highest good and the highest good of all concerned, I ask that like my crown chakra decrease in size or that there's less energy from my crown. But for the highest good, because maybe you are meant, I mean, certain spiritual people are meant to kind of live up there.
Yeah.
But the average person, it's not such a great idea.
Yeah.
You'll get mania and Kundalini syndrome and
Yeah.
all kinds of bipolar and all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
So you could just ask that your crown chakra be decreased and that your earth star and your root chakra, the chakra beneath your feet and the root chakra can get energized and connected to the earth.
Yeah.
So that's how I would approach the grounding, just sort of combining
Yeah.
action with some pendulum.
Yeah.
And then consider bringing in the nature spirits if you're open to that idea, because it's another layer of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love working with the Earth Star chakra as well because I feel like that's it. I think the root and the Earth Star chakra are both grounding chakras, but for the root, I feel like like that's the bit that sometimes holds the survival fear. Whereas when you go down to the Earth Star, it feels much more peaceful and connect. Like it's got a like every time I connect to my Earth Star chakra, I feel this sense of comfort, support, wanting to see the beauty of the earth, and recognizing how beautiful it actually is, and also how magical it is. And so I love working, like when I'm out walking my dog in the mornings, I often spend time connecting to that Earth Star chakra and then just allowing that to sort of be more open and then bringing it up through the rest of the chakras. So I feel like it's an underused chakra in some ways. Maybe that's because not everyone knows about it, but like it's almost like a bit forgotten.
Well, yeah, that's I didn't mean to, are you finished?
Yeah.
You complete? That's a fantastic observation you just shared. It's actually extremely insightful. In my system, the Earth Star chakra is the portal of the soul from the heavenly realms to the earth. So it's the edge of the veil.
Yeah.
So like a lot of mystical traditions have it backwards. Like in the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, they say the emanation goes from God and works its way down. I don't think that's correct. I think we go straight from God to earth and then we work our way back up to the divine again. So I agree with that's completely in alignment with your view of the Earth Star chakra. It is a very sacred divine portal and it's like our soul, our animus, our spirit, our consciousness, I believe enters through that portal and it's sort of our divine representation on the earth. And like you said, the root is more survival, it's more animalistic, it's further away from that. And so you have to travel up the chakra system to get back to the crown to get more towards heavenly things. But like you were saying, if you're a highly spiritual person, but then you ignore the portal below your feet, you're kind of only getting half the picture. You know, you're completely in the ascendant realm. You're heading towards God, heading towards the divine, towards the spirit realm. But there's an earthly manifestation of the spirit realm, the portal of the Earth star that is our connection there. So I think it's good. That's why an argument in favor of energizing both. But I like your description of it. It's very
Oh,
poetic and it rings true to me.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
just, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. Once I sort of started connecting with it, I actually ended up doing a meditation and putting it on YouTube because it just brought me so much peace. And through the peace, I felt like my life flowed so much easier. And I always hold the intention that every day is going to be easy, flowing, and graceful. And that comes out in funny little ways, like when I go to town, like all the traffic lights are green, or suddenly the traffic all disappears and I just scoot on through.
That's great.
But I love it, and I affirm, oh yeah, the flow and the ease and the grace and the miracles are here. And I'll often, just with the pendulum, I'll just pick it up and do some commands of everything always works out for my highest good, and it's easy, flowing, and graceful. Because even though some people will look at my health history, for example, and go, "Oh my God, like that must have been really hard," but there have been times, where I thought, oh, God, not another thing to deal with, but like generally, I'll just go in it and flow. And it's always, I mean, even when I had my last transplant, the surgeon came around the next day and said, well, you don't even look like you've had surgery, You're sort of up bright, bushy eyed, and sort of walking up and down the ward. And so I said, well, I'm just getting my exercise in. So I think there's a lot to be said about being grounded is through that Earth star as well, is really powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah,
I mean, our soul is at peace, our consciousness. Like I had a near-death experience and like I was completely, I mean, there was no I, but like my consciousness was completely at peace. There is no, I mean, that's the only reason we incarnate because we don't know what's we're in store for.
yeah.
It's all
We
peaceful
forgot.
out there, but anyway, but yeah, so connecting to that is like connecting to Earth Star is actually a much purer connection to your soul than going through the crown because the crown you're still it's like you're ascending through these portals but while you're alive, you cannot fully get out of it, really, unless you have a near-death experience. But then you're just going to end up returning back to your Earth star anyway, because that's your that's like the closest thing to your pure self.
Yeah,
So you either escape completely in death, but we can't do that unless I mean, in near death you can get close to that, but yeah, but anything other than like a death or a near death experience, you're going to be struggling with the crown, trying to work through those layers, and that's like why a lot of shamanism gets kind of scary because they're trying to ascend up the crown to get out of it, like, and then you're just going through all this weird stuff.
yeah,
But the soul, the consciousness is not. It's so calm. It's so at peace. It's like oneness. It's unity, and there's no desire. It's just like this state of contentment with the divine. And so that the Earth Star gives us a taste of that. So your insight seems spot on to me.
thank you. Oh, that's really nice to know, actually, because it just, I mean, it's no one taught me it. I just tuned in, and
Yeah,
that's
I've never heard anyone say it the way you're saying it, but I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start doing this because intellectually, I've thought about this not in the same context, but like in different contexts. But when you're saying this, it really rings true to me, and like it's making me think of all the intellectual stuff around it and some of the experiential stuff, like the near death experience that I had. So, yeah, that's cool. I like it. Good job.
thank you. What about protection then? Like, because
Yeah.
should we do some commands on protection and maybe
Yeah, sure.
talk to people
Yeah,
why
sure.
that's
I can maybe I just give a little brief
yeah,
like a summary of my view of it, and then we can do some actual work on it that people can learn. So, like, when I got into all this work, I was psychically attacked by all kinds of people. I also had, when I was younger, I had a lot of paranormal experience with ghosts and stuff like that. So, like you said in the beginning, when you start doing all this kind of work, all of a sudden you've opened yourself up to this whole world of things that you were not necessarily prepared for.
Yeah,
And so part of your journey is going to be learning how to work with it. And normally, like when people talk about protection and stuff, they'll say like, "Oh, you got to make a shield, like make a golden bubble around yourself and shield yourself constantly." And that's okay to a certain point. But what I found is that if you're just always shielding yourself, you're weakening your energetic immune system. So it's kind of like a person who uses hand sanitizer all the time, or if you took antibiotics all the time,
yeah,
eventually they just wouldn't work anymore. So there are people out there like just constantly trying to shield themselves, just constantly doing all this stuff to protect themselves, and it actually weakens them, and it makes the problem worse and worse.
yeah,
So there's like different things you've got to be aware of. So the in this book I have it kind of laid out, but I'll go through it right now. So the first step is you want to get people out of your energy field that don't belong there.
yeah.
And so you can just take your pendulum. I'll use my skull pendulum.
Oh,
So,
cool. I love that one. It's
yeah,
just so goth. And it's
yeah, exactly. It's too bad like Keith Richards or Johnny Depp or something don't discover this.
yeah, exactly.
Or anyway, but so you take the pendulum and just say, anyone who's in my energy field, I kindly ask that they leave now if they don't belong here. This or something better, or highest good of all concerned. Or you can just say, anyone who's in my energy field, leave now if in the highest good of all concerned. Because some people need to be in your energy field.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to kick my mom and dad out of
Of
the
course.
energy field, or any student who I've got a positive beneficial connection with or something, because we have every chord with everybody, so some people we need it, and some people it's vital like for our healing to be connected to them. So you want to get the people who don't belong there out, because they're parasites, bad relations, people maybe you're just gluing on to, or they're gluing on to you. So that's the first step, and it doesn't take long to do. Like we've already done it now. So that's the first step. Then there are different approaches you can take. Now, I recommend that you clear your energy on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And the reason why is you get exposed to the bad energy briefly, then you clear it out. So that builds up your immunity. And then over time, you have to do the energy clearing less and less. So when I first started this, I had to clear like every day.
Yeah.
But then after a few months, it was like I would just do it like maybe a couple times a week. And now I could do it maybe once a month or once every 2 months. So you start building up, and I'm dealing with a lot of people, like, and doing all kinds of weird stuff. So, uh, but you build up energetic immunity. Now, if you do the shield all the time, that can be bad because it weakens you. But sometimes things are so intense that you have to do the shield first, or at least for a short time while you address the issue in another way. And I'll explain that too. So first step is get people out of your energy field that don't belong there. And it only takes a second. Just do that little command. And you can just do it whenever you start, like if you just start like feeling heavy or weird, or you're like, well, I'm really sad, but I don't know why. Or I'm so angry, but it doesn't make sense why I'm feeling so angry. It's probably somebody in your energy field. So that's the first step, right? Then the next step is you can do like an energy clearing of yourself. Now, like I've got like a protocol that's kind of a little bit involved in the book, but I'll do like a simple version.
Yeah.
So you could just say that like, I now ask that any harmful energies that are in my energy field that they leave now, or they're sent or let's do it this way. I ask that any harmful energies in my field are sent wherever they need to go in the universe for the highest good of all concerned. And you just let it spin for a little while. Okay, then like it's done. It doesn't have to be that long, but you follow your intuition. You can let it spin longer if you're into it.
No one always
Like,
goes back and forth when it's finished.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, so you just kind of you could eat now. If it's taking like 20 minutes, then just stop it. I had one person say like, yeah, it take me an hour to do a command. I was like, just stop after 10 seconds. Like, but no, you can let it spin as long as you want, or you could just do it for a short amount of rotations, whatever you feel called to do. Okay, so that's kind of the next step, right?
Yeah.
Then, all right, so that's just for general, like everyday things. You just kind of get people out of your field and then clear any harmful energies out. And then you can add in some energies. You could say, like, I fill the voids that are left with beneficial energy, or I fill the voids with love and light. Anything that resonates with you, you could just say, like, in ways that are for my highest good. And that way you kind of, or you could say whatever energies I need, like, and then you don't even have to specify what they are, and you can just kind of let them come in.
Yeah.
All right, now let's say you're in an intense situation, like you're like I'm trying to think of what could be like. Well, like there's a really toxic person in your energy field, or you're under psychic attack,
Yeah.
or there's like spirits that are attacking you, or something like that. You may need to put up a shield after you do all that after the little process we did right there. I would then put up a shield, but I would only do it on a short-term basis until the problem is kind of resolving itself. If possible, just try to do the clearing of the people and the energy, and then just put in some good energy, and then that will, for normal circumstances, that will just build up your strength and help you get stronger, so that you can just go, like, you can go out in public, you can even interact with the public, do all kinds of, or with family members or whatever, and you'll get stronger and you'll be able to deal with it better. But in some extreme cases, you might need to shield. So you could just say, like, I put a silver. Now silver is the energy of ending. It's gray, or it's black and white. So in my system, it's ending. So you could say, put a silver shield around me to protect me from any harmful energies coming in. And that shield will last for a short time, like maybe it could be like a few hours or a day. So if you're going to go into a really toxic environment, or if you feel like you're under psychic attack, you can do the shield and just renew it a couple times a day or whatever. And then that's one thing you can do. But then the next thing you have to do is you have to send love to everyone who is attacking you, or whatever forces are attacking you. And you have to also send silver to the cord that connects you to them.
Okay.
So, because if it's in your highest good, it's like an umbilicus between a baby and a mother. And then if you send this silver light to it and it's not in your highest good, the cord will just naturally wither and die. It's much better than trying to cut it. Yeah. And then also, if you send that being or spirit or person or whatever it is love, you raise their vibration, and it makes them less likely to attack you. Yeah. So you set up your shield, and then you just can say, like, send love and healing to anyone known or unknown, or any spirit known or unknown, or any harmful influence known or unknown that is influencing me in a harmful way, for my highest good. And then you can say, send silver to any unhealthy cords that are connected to me. You can also send love to the cords. Like you say, send love to any cords that are connected to me, and then send silver to any unhealthy cords that are connected to me. And then if the connection still remains, then you know that there's something else you've got to do. It's part of your spiritual journey, because
yeah,
I'm sorry, kids, but spirituality all not wine and roses. It's not just, you're not just strolling down the path, So sometimes you're going to deal with some rough stuff. So you may have some really, like, if specifically there's a person that's really a nightmare in your life, you hate them, or they're just really bothering you, you can clear your energy, get them out of your field, heal your own energy field, maybe put up a shield, send love and silver to the cord connecting you to them. And then, if they still persist in your life, then that there's got to be some spiritual lesson that you need to integrate in order for the release to happen. But a lot of times they'll just go away. But if they don't, or if a situation doesn't, like a haunting or something like that, then that, wait a minute, there's something I'm missing here, that there's something I need to do. And usually it's something around acceptance, forgiveness. But like I said, you can't always get there right away. That's why sending the love is so important, because you can bypass your internal state by sending love. As long as you make the conscious act, okay, like, I really don't like this situation of this person, but I'm going to send it love to heal it, you've already taken a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So it makes it more likely. And then even if you don't believe it, it can start to work. And that can also resolve. And there are sometimes when people have just done absolutely horrible things to you, and there's no way on a human level you could ever really like truly forgive them. But on some spiritual level, you could say like, okay, well, that person was really damaged in order to do that to me. I don't want this person wrecking my karma and having to come back like thousands of lifetimes to deal with this crap. Like I'm gonna just send them love, even though I think it's awful what they did.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're accepting it. It's not like you're agreeing with it. It's not like you have to interact with them ever again, but you're actually taking that step. And that's so beyond what most people are willing to do that it puts you in a whole nother realm of consciousness, like closer to that 5D ascension or whatever, that most people are never gonna, because most people could never let it go. They could be like, well, that person was so bad or whatever that I could never send them love in a million years, like in fact, I'm gonna send them hate or something, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that feels good in the moment. But that's why I invented the rainbow love bombing technique
Right.
in
Yeah,
the
let's talk
book.
about that a little bit because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I want to just say it's so powerful to send someone love that's because our egos, take offense and
Right. And sometimes it's really justified. I mean,
yeah,
it's
of
someone who does
course.
something horrible to you,
Yeah,
like this is
yeah,
horrible,
yeah,
unforgivable, like,
yeah,
but if we don't, but then the lifetimes thing, like I believe that view of Edgar Casey that like that all the karma stuff is drama that's unresolved from previous lives, and that you've got to get to this place of love somehow or forgiveness, like agape love, not like you love them, but like the love of God or spirit,
yeah,
like to
yeah.
heal. Anyway,
No, that's
but yeah, I've got this rainbow love bombing thing in the book
yeah.
too.
Tell me about
Yeah. Yeah, so what I notice is that in the spiritual community, most people do spiritual bypassing, unfortunately. And then their shadow comes out in really weird ways. So there are so many gurus who like are sexually abusing all of their students or whatever, or stealing all the students' money or something like that. And so it's like, yeah, they have a great message, but then when you look at their life, it's a total disaster because they were spiritually bypassing, And so I thought about that, like, well, how on a practical level can I help people who are just normal people, not gurus, most of us. I'm not a guru. How could I help normal people like feel their real emotions and express them without having to spiritually bypass? Because I've been in so many healing systems or like spiritual systems where like after a while, like you just start the shadow gets so built up because there's such BS, like
yeah,
oh, everyone's an angel. Oh, you just gotta love everybody, all this stuff. It's not true. You gotta love every situation. It's not true. So I made up this thing, rainbow love bombing. So what you do is you express your true feelings and then you send rainbow colored light and love with your pendulum. So am I allowed to swear on the show or?
sure.
Okay, so you say like, I send that bastard rainbow love and light, and I send them healing and those rainbow love. So like
Yeah,
that way you can say how you
yeah,
really feel. Like I could send that mother effer, I send them love. I send them rainbow colored light and love. So it allows you to express your true feeling in like a very high vibe way. And it's like funny too. You can laugh at it a little bit. It kind of raises
yeah,
the vibe. But
yeah,
like, yeah, because otherwise you're just like, oh, I send them love. But
yeah,
you're like, I hate them. I hate them. So it's like, I hate that person and I send them all the love of the world. I live in a tourist town and we have these traffic circles and like the tourists go really slow and they do all this. So like, I'm always like, send this asshole love. No, I mean, it's a little exaggerated, but you know what I mean? But like,
yeah,
there's so many times when you just like, we don't express ourselves
yeah,
fully because we want to be spiritual. We want to be good. We want to be high level of consciousness. And well, I think it's a wonderful aim. And I definitely think like you should always be striving to do the right thing, like to try to raise your vibe, raise your consciousness. The reality is, as you said in the beginning, we're 3D. So
yeah,
you're totally lying if you think you're never going to get angry, you're
yeah,
never going to get sad, you're never going to be envious or jealous or whatever. That would be a lie. That would be spiritually bypassing.
Yeah.
and you won't, because you have to be a spiritual being, you have to have the fullness of human experience, but then you have to handle it in a way that's different than the average person. So rather than getting stuck in that negativity and becoming a pathology where, like you hate someone for 20 years and you never let it go or whatever, you have your true emotions and your feelings, but then you step back and you remember that you're on a spiritual path, you're growing, and you find another way. Like it could be, the rainbow love bombing, or sending them love with the system, or it could be praying for the person, or like in spite of how you feel, you take an extra step that most people aren't able to take. And
Yeah.
that's what separates the men from the boys, or the women from the girls in the spiritual
Yeah.
world. Anyway, that's my view.
I think that's genius. I really do.
Oh, thanks.
I
Thanks.
think, yeah, to let the emotion out first, because, as you said, we're humans, we're emotional beings, and if we try and suppress those, which is, it is so common that we go, oh, I've got to rise above this, I've got to rise above this, but you're not allowing your feeling in that moment to come out. I think, that's just fantastic because you let it out and then you say, right, and now, I'm going to send them this love. And I
Yeah,
think,
because you're
yeah,
you're taking that one tiny little step. It's not going from, most spiritual people want you to go from here to here
yeah,
in one giant leap.
yeah,
But the reality is, if you can just get here, you're doing so much better than if you didn't do that. So that's why I think it's important to really feel your emotions, feel your feelings, and then try to do something that is just a little step above.
yeah. No, that's really. I think so many people could relate to that as well. And as you say, it is a bit fun just letting that
Yeah,
feeling out, isn't it?
yeah, it's kind
You
of fun. It's like a monkey throwing poop or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's so refreshing. And I think I'm definitely going to use that with some of my clients that are going through difficult feelings, in terms.
Yeah, because a lot of people stuff their feelings and
Yeah,
it creates so many problems. Like they really have strong feelings and they were told it was wrong, or they were shamed, or they're trying to be good, and then it comes out like in weird ways, or it results in sickness or all kinds of things.
I actually had a client
So,
say to me the other day, she told me a scenario which I won't go into, but she said, I'm
yeah.
eating my feelings.
Oh God. Oh yeah.
And I was like,
So
okay, you need to come in. But it was,
right, right.
I thought it was quite interesting. She's very astute as to what was going on, but she's had a lot of sort of narcissistic people drawn into her life, and that's partly because of her childhood. And she's got those coping, so that's how she copes in the moment, is to eat the feelings. Well, if I taught her what you've just shown us there, I think that would be a much healthier way of really letting
Exactly.
that out and then moving on from it, so
Exactly.
yeah,
Because, like, yeah, I mean, well, some people would say that, oh, she manifested this lifetime with narcissists to heal this. Or you could just say she's got narcissists in her life, and if she heals this, she's going to be a better person.
exactly,
It's like I don't necessarily believe that like she chose this lifetime for that. But
yeah,
either way, like if you just eat the feelings, you're not going to grow. You're not going to become a better person. You're not going to heal yourself so that you can actually start being a vibrational match for non-narcissists, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So like, yeah, I think that'd be great to give her some methods to try to help empower her and to help her free herself from that. Because like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that's a part of the journey. Like just making, they say in America, making lemonade out of lemons.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Like,
If you get given
that's part of the
lemons, make
spiritual
lemonade. Yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, I love that. I think that's a really, really a good technique that anybody could use and relate to. And, I think just letting that go in that first bit is very powerful, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
acknowledging exactly where you are in that present moment. Um, which is some, yeah, as you say, we swallow down our emotions, or because of what society has told us how we need to be, we can't express them freely, which obviously if you're in a workplace, say, and someone's annoyed you, you can't just kick off at them in that moment,
Exactly.
but you can go home and pick up your pendulum and do some work,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
you
no,
won't
exactly.
yeah, and you've sent them some good energy as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then like tying it back to the whole protection thing and stuff in the book, like in the book, that's why I have so many different like methods to do this because like maybe you need to shield yourself, maybe you just need to clear your energy field, maybe you need to express some negativity and rainbow love bomb. Maybe you need to call upon an archangel. Maybe you need to put a magic ring of protection around yourself. Maybe you need to, like there are so many different. Maybe you need to do emotional healing.
Yeah,
Maybe you need a certain color or a classical element force brought into you or the situation to resolve things. There, like the more you know, like the more you can approach these things from different angles. Some of them are literal and obvious, and others are more indirect. But sometimes, you need like maybe the direct approach doesn't work. Then you try another method. Like, okay, so I tried the rainbow love bombing, I tried the cord healing, I tried the energy clearing, and it's still a problem. Okay, I'm going to call on the archangel now, or my guardian angel, or something. And maybe that will work.
yeah,
Or maybe if I do color healing on this situation, it will help. Or maybe there's like geopathic stress or something, or so there's so that's why I like this book. I just put so many
yeah.
different methods in here so that you could
It's
try to experiment.
it's
Like maybe I need to do an
giant.
energy cleansing bath.
Yeah,
Maybe let's see, like I could just like there's so many things in here. Like just
yeah.
look through it real quick. So let's see.
It's like a
Maybe I could
giant
do some
toolbox.
candle magic. Maybe I need to
Yeah,
make a vision board, do a shamanic journey. maybe maybe I need to get some essential oils and energize those because they could protect me. Like maybe I've got to deal with an energy vampire or a parasite. Maybe I need to do a time machine healing and go back and work on my past or work on a past life or something. So that like there are all these different methods in the book that you could use to help you to do this because there's never just one way to do things. And
yeah,
that drives people crazy when they talk to me. They're just like, I just want one way that's always true for all time. And I'm like, well, there are like 100 different ways we can go about this.
yeah,
There's this
and it,
way, there's this way, there's this way, and but it makes it more. That's why this is like a field of study because you can get away with doing like very simple things and they can take you pretty far, but then at a certain point when something is challenging, you may need to come at it from multiple approaches,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So that's why I tried to give that variety in the book.
Yeah, and if anyone hasn't got that, this amazing book, I highly recommend it because there is so much in it, and you can get it on Amazon. Is there any other booksellers that?
There are probably some others, but that's
Yeah,
the main one.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's, for all the problems Amazon has, they will let you publish,
yeah,
and like regular publishers just aren't interested in this kind of thing. So I'm grateful to Amazon for that.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I have helped people get copies too, if they can't get it in their country. Sometimes you
Right.
can't get it, so I've just shipped it directly to people from
Yeah,
Amazon. I can do that. And there are some secondary booksellers that have it too.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing, and
Oh, thanks.
definitely, it's like having a giant toolbox in front
Yeah,
of you, isn't it? Because
yeah.
there's sort of something for everything in here. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
when you put part one on it, and I thought, what on earth are you going to put in part two?
Oh, there's so much more. I had to stop myself. Yeah, so and I'm constantly new things. So yeah, there's plenty for a part
Yeah,
two. Just again, if people are already overwhelmed with this, I
yeah,
gotta wait a little while, give it a few years to kind of settle in.
yeah.
But yeah, no, totally. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss?
I think I feel like we've covered so much.
Okay.
I know for one, I'm definitely going to be re-watching this video when we've produced it and put it on YouTube just to get all the little snippets that you've so kindly given us. But is there any courses or pendulums in particular you want to tell us about before we sort of wrap up?
Well, I mean, like, so if people go on my website,
Yeah.
they often are, there's so many different courses they offer. They ask me like, how do you navigate it? And so what I recommend is I have courses called the foundation courses.
Yeah.
Well, I have free courses. I recommend you take the free courses first. I have one on get started with pendulum alchemy and healing your chakras. And I recommend you just try it right away
Yeah.
and just see like, is this working or not? If you start seeing results from those free courses, then I recommend checking out the foundation courses if you want to do it in a structured way.
Yeah.
Because that kind of gives you sort of the framework. And I would also get this book because this book it's for beginners to highly advanced. It goes the entire spectrum. All right, then I have specialized courses. Like you could just take one of those as a one-off if you want to, because every course is standalone.
Yeah.
But if you want to do this in a structured way, I would start with the free courses, then the foundation courses, and then I would pick ones of interest from the specialized. But if you're a free spirit, you could do it completely the
Yeah.
opposite way if you wanted.
I see you've got one on sort of astrology as well.
Oh yeah, that was a really fun one we just
Yeah.
did recently. It was a collaborative project with a really gifted pendulum alchemist named Rafa Martinez from Mexico.
Wow.
And yeah, so like we take, I take or my colleagues and I when we work together, we take topics that can be kind of maybe complex or challenging or maybe not, and we really distill it down to like how can we make this practical? How can you do it? So the astrology was like that.
Right.
We took this really complex subject
Yeah.
and then we made it like very practical, very useful, extremely like you'll get like so if you study that, you'll get all kinds of insights. When I was making the course, I was like, damn, I wish I knew this like 20 or 30 years ago. Because there are all these cycles that we go through because of our when we were born, because the planets influence us. So it's really important like knowledge. Yeah, so like I have courses like that. They're a little more on the technical side. And then I have other ones like this Archangels one. It's like
Right.
mostly me doing guided meditations with the Archangels and explaining, and people have gotten like they've been like, whoa, I was really in altered state listening to some of those. Yeah, so wide range of stuff. Yeah, for all tastes,
Yeah.
and different approaches. So like I've got this fun one on moon magic, which is really easy to do and very powerful. I've got a more technical one called meridian healing, where we talk about how to heal the meridian system in Chinese medicine. And it was really crazy. Like I worked with people who are actually trained in Chinese medicine to help make that course. And then we had students tell us that like this made so much more sense than the actual training that I took in acupuncture and stuff. Like, how did you do this? Like, this is so much more understandable than I spent like 20 years studying this stuff. And,
Yeah.
anyway, so, yeah, so something for everybody. And all the courses are multi-level. So you can be a total beginner or really advanced and you'll get stuff out of them and anything in between. In terms of pendulums, like nowadays there are like more and more good pendulums out there from various people.
Yeah.
So like in the book, I give some really specific guidelines of what you should be looking for, like what kind of materials, what kind of shapes, what should you avoid, what should you get. So like that's one way. But then everything on my website, they're all things that I created and I created them for a reason. They're super high energy or very strong. Like this skull one is so powerful. A bunch of people have had like miracles with this skull.
I just
Sorry.
have a little skull ring on. I don't know whether you'll be able
Oh,
to
nice.
see it on camera, but I've got a giant one
Oh,
as well
cool.
that I sometimes
Oh, yeah,
wear.
I see it. Nice, nice. Like this one, the Merkaba, it's like it's got like so it's got a very different shape. So like most of the times when you have a pendulum, it's gonna be like something that's kind of linear. Like this one isn't exactly linear, it's a little rounded, but more or less like a linear object. So what like in the book I talk about a strategy like how to pick pendulums. So what I would say is look at whatever pendulum you have right now. If it's suitable for this work, use it. But then try to find a pendulum with a radically different shape as your next pendulum. Like something that's really round or something that's got like geometric shape to it, or maybe something like with coils and wires around it. And you can get things like this from various people. Then once you've got like a linear one and one that's not linear, get one of a different material. So if you have a metal one, get a wooden one.
Yeah.
Or, if you have, or get like this plastic one. It's got metal in the plastic.
Right.
It works really well. Plastic by itself doesn't work. Or I make this one from a bone. It's called the bone pendulum. So like try to get like different materials.
Yeah.
So like if you just had to have 3 pendulums, get like a straight one, some kind of round one, and then some kind of one made from a different material. Because what happens with the pendulums, there's no such thing as a best pendulum.
No, sure.
Because they're energy tools, and every situation, every person responds differently to energy. So you never know which one is going to work. So you have to experiment. So like you might try this one and get the result you want right away, or you may not quite get the result, and then you switch to another one like that has a different shape, and then voila, that one has the energy that stimulates the response. So it's always good to try to have at least, at least have one, but then if possible, get 2 and make sure that the 2 are very different from each other.
Yeah.
So then that way each one has a very different effect. And then if possible, try to get a third that has a different effect.
Yeah.
And so every time you get a new pendulum, try to find one that's very different from everything else you already have.
Yeah.
Then at a certain point when you have lots of them that are similar, then you can start fine tuning like, well, maybe I'll get a bigger version of it or a smaller version of it, or maybe I'll get this one. It's similar overall, but it has a different type energy or something. But in the early stages, just go for diversity of suitable shapes, like and suitable materials. So that's where the book can help guide you on that. Like, anyway, so that's kind of the strategy there. But yeah, everything on my website, they're all things I've tested, other people have tried, they have super high energy, so you really can't go wrong with anything from there. But like I said, there are other people making great ones too nowadays, so you can find them all over.
But it's good to let people know just the amount of selection you've got available, so that if they
yeah, just follow your intuition when you can always email me and ask, but if you feel strongly like you really want one, even if the description is different than what you think, just get it anyway, because you might be right.
Yeah.
It could be like that you knew that person was the perfect donor for you. Sometimes you just know, like regardless of what the description says, that a particular pendulum is the perfect one.
I've got my eye on that one in particular. But then I see the skull one and the bone one, and I'm like, oh, like it overwhelms me, because I'm
it's kind of overwhelming. I know. It's the paradox of choice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Erich, thank you very much for giving us your time and telling us so many interesting and really helpful, things within this interview. As we said, highly recommend people getting this book. It's an investment. That's how I see it. It's an investment, and it's a massive toolbox as well. There's something in there for everybody, isn't there? And it's,
totally.
It's not just arms, there's all sorts of other things in there as well, aren't there? Like you were saying, the kitchen stuff in particular, there's some little rituals and things that you can do. It's all wonderful. And so go and get that. Have a look at Erich's website as well. And let's wrap up for today. But thank you very, very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And if you could give us a like and drop a comment down below, if you've got any questions for Erich, you'll probably see the comments, won't you? So we will wrap up for today. But thank you very much. Wishing you all a lovely day ahead, and week ahead, and month ahead, etc. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Whispers of the pendulum, a journey to go, guiding souls to realms where dreams convene. Kelly and Frog, the masters of the chess.